This is Louis Zumbaugh with Rush Hour Ag. Leave your message after the tone.
Hey Louis, it's Elliot Henderson. Can't wait to tell you about
rolling down the back road, truth riding with the dust, talking agriculture policy with people you can trust. From the field to the Capitol, we're breaking it down. Real talk, real issues from a real farm town. Every hour's rush hour when the work won't wait, so we're cutting through the noise and setting things straight.
What's your rush today, Elliot?
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Rush Hour Ag. I'm your host, Elliot Henderson.
And I'm your co-host, Louis Zumbaugh. I'm coming at you from Coggin, Iowa, and Elliot's in Slater today.
Yep. After I get done here, I'm going to run down to Des Moines and stop into the corn office and maybe try to get up the Capitol for a meeting or two yet today.
Cool. Who you meeting at the Capitol?
I can't say right now.
Okay, well, fair enough.
That's right. All right, well, we got an interesting guest here today. So we're going to talk a little bit of water quality, and we got Zack Smith, also known as Stock Cropper on X. And I don't know, Louis, have you ever met Zack?
I have, well, just a few minutes ago, but not for that.
Well, it's going to be an interesting episode because water quality has been a pretty important topic here in Iowa, and coming into this next legislative session, I'm sure it's going to get brought up. So, Zack, why don't you tell listeners and us a little bit about who you are and where you come from?
Sure. So Zack Smith from Winnebago County, hail just outside of Lake Mills is where I'm at. I grew up outside the small town of Buffalo Center on a small family farm, corn and soybeans. Had hog farrow finished till the early 90s, and got out before the big barn craze came in. We needed to reconfigure there, and we got out before that happened, and then we just focused on row crop. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. There's a 17-year spread from oldest to youngest, and so there wasn't room for me to farm. So I did what a lot of people did, went down to Iowa State and got a degree in agronomy, and focused on. I never thought I would ever farm. I just thought I would take the big ag route lane and go that route, and so that's what I pretty much focused on the first 15 or 20 years. I was came out of the degree in agronomy. I was a farm manager for a couple of years, and I worked for a major independent family chemical retailer up in northern Iowa for 11 years. I was a certified crop advisor and a crop protection sales agronomist for them. And then at that point, I had an opportunity to take over a Pioneer business in 2015 or work my way into it. And so I did that. And then I added crop protection sales to that business. And I also had what used to be in Circa and then Granular. I had that service that I offered and sold cover crop soil samples. I was kind of like your average, seed dealer retail corner shop. And did that until about 2020 or 2021, I should say. I should back up and say along the way, when my little brother got close to graduating high school, I started in on farming during the ethanol boom when there was actual money. When I started in ag, I was 2003, and then beans were $5 and corn was loan rate, and we had LDPs and things that, we have different acronyms now, but I remember the business before ethanol and what it was like versus what it's become. And so I got the chance in 2010. I started farming shares on an 80 with my dad, and then he retired at the age of 62 in 2013, and that's when I took over a portion of his acres and kind of farmed on the side with the retail business. And that, it's the gig that a lot of people play to make it work. But then in 2021, I had the opportunity. One of my seed customers came to me just completely out of the blue, never saw it in a million years, but offered me the chance to take over the operation. Or his family's operation, and it was a deal that I never thought would ever happen to me, and I really wasn't even thinking about it because I was doing really well with the other business. But along the way in 2020, I had this idea that you referred to earlier as starting this concept called stock cropping, which is an alternative production system. I would say that I've been working on for the last 6 years that takes, kind of some of the principles of regenerative agriculture and minces them with high production or high productivity agriculture, using strip intercropping and integrating livestock back onto the landscape. And we've made this possible by inventing the world's first mobile 3-ring circus on wheels and mobile grazing barn that we called a cluster cluck, and had sheep and pigs and chickens, and this whole menagerie of livestock that we paraded through strip intercropping and
More like calling them like chicken tractors.
chicken tractors. Yeah, but this is like a chicken tractors on tea and steroids and hacks and but it was so I work on developing that and then kind of the business around making mobile livestock barns. And so I walked away from the retail business for a couple reasons. I had the farming opportunity. I had this new entrepreneurial thing that I wanted to focus time on, and quite honestly, I was just sick of working in retail for 20 years, and it was time to take a step back and not have my phone ring 362 times a day on the 1st of May, when everybody needed everything. And it's financially, it was the stupidest decision I ever made to walk away from Pioneer dealership at the age of 42. But money isn't everything in life, and I'm a hell of a lot happier with the path I'm on now.
So did that dealership stay, or did that
No.
be consolidated?
So it got consolidated. That's kind of the trend.
Yes.
I saw coming, and I knew that when I got in, is that, none of these places are looking to, rebuild. But it just doesn't really end so the direction.
Anyway,
Yeah, the direction that the business is in. It's a business of consolidation and reduction of people right now. So, yeah, and then outside of that, I'm here talking about water quality, and I became really interested. I got into strip till in 2011. I bought my first rig then, but it wasn't like soil health wasn't this like sexy and vogue thing at that point. Like I was interested in strip till because agronomically, with my background and training, like it just made sense to me. Minimize tillage, row index nutrients where the plant needs them, minimize erosion, those things. The soil health stuff started to become much more in vogue after that.
Right.
And then I started discovering like, oh, this stuff isn't just fairy dust. Like these principles, like water infiltration, is a real thing when you don't till the piss out of the ground. And so I started discovering that stuff, and it kept leading me down these other paths, which eventually got me thinking about the livestock integration piece and doing what I did with stock croppers. So that was kind of the path to getting into the passion that we're going to probably talk about today. And then I've been married for 22 years, and I've got 2 girls at Iowa State.
You don't want to forget that part, right, Louis?
Yeah, go Cyclones. Yeah, go Cyclones. We're going to beat Kansas tomorrow. So, or Saturday, whenever that's coming up. So
you should always mention your wife first, so you don't forget.
yeah. So,
But stock cropper. So, it's like it's a systems approach basically, right? Like where you're bringing in the livestock part of it. Is that a key part of it?
yeah, it's like what agriculture used to be, where you walk the value off the farm in the form of livestock. And because we didn't have an ethanol market, you needed to do something with the crop. And so, but it's a different way of doing it. It's kind of it's old methodology with utilizing new technology like GPS auto steer on a livestock barn, which we did in 2021. We put that in the field for the first time. And it's the idea of similar to my seed business, where we stack enterprises. So when I pulled onto a farm to sell seed, I didn't want to just be a seed dealer, because a lot of guys, when I got into the Pioneer business in Northern Iowa in 2015, like they didn't want to buy Pioneer because it was still Pioneer falls down, right? And then in Northern Iowa, that was the line. And so I needed to have other things to be able to get on the farm, because Pioneer wasn't falling down. That was the advent of really coming back big time. And so my timing was really good in that, but I had to have a hook. And so I had to have other services to get there. And so what made me really successful in that line in the first, 4 or 5 years is that I could pull in, and if they didn't want seed, I had 4 other things that I could offer. And once I would get in there, eventually the seed door would open. And then all of a sudden, instead of needing 60 or 70 seed customers only, I really just needed 20 good customers that I could pull on, and I could sell them seed. I could control their fertility program through Encirca and Granular. I could sell them the crop protection. I could do their soil sampling. I built a moat around the customer that kept all the marauders out.
Sure.
And that's the same way I think about what we did with stock cropper. Is we're not just putting a pen of pigs or a chicken tractor in it, because that alone, the economics of that don't make sense to justify the expense and the hassle. But when you start putting all of these different things from a biodiversity standpoint and an economic standpoint of stacking the revenue, the numbers get really, really interesting about, and especially when you think about the challenges for young people. And that was really the spirit that we came with. Myself and a guy by the name of Sheldon Steven or Lance Peterson, we were brainstorming on this idea in the winter of 2020 when everything was in the crapper. You know, when beans were $7.50 and corn was $2.75 that winter, right ahead of COVID. That's what was kind of the genesis of trying to come up with this idea. And that was one thing we wanted to do, is like, what could we come up where a system that would actually put more people back on the land rather than, you know, schools going to four-day weeks. And, you know, because we're trying to attract teachers to rural areas to keep them, you know, work less, to, you know, all of the weird things that we're having to do to try to keep rural Iowa alive.
Right. So margin, like it's all about margin. This system, the stock cropping enterprise, is it able to return more margin back to the producer than the conventional way of farming?
100%. If you have the capacity to get the animals to market, that's the biggest constraint on why, you know, the system is a long ways from ever having the capacity to scale. It's not because, so I'll just give you a couple quick numbers. So from a productivity standpoint, when you grow, you know, things in, when you introduce light and gaps into a cornfield, you can substantially increase the corn yield output. So in our system, so, you know, we are normally in Northern Iowa, we grow like, you know, 230, 240 bushel corn. In our stock cropper system, within 3 years of rotating back and forth, we had our corn yields up to as high as 325 bushel an acre with no additional inputs other than a little bit of nitrogen and then the manure that the animals left. So the system is corn 1 year, animals the next, and you just flip flop a 20-foot strip back and forth.
Okay.
So we can substantially increase corn yield without, you know, coming to a crop protection or input supplier to buy a bunch of trinkets off the trinket tree that may or may not provide any value. But we just simply use arrangement and light, which is free, to boost corn yield in that. And then in between, we're growing livestock in a fashion, again, because of the arrangement that we can claim as pasture raised, because it's raised on the actual soil. It all has access to sunshine and being able to graze plants. And so you can now have a market premium that you can charge that people will pay for with that story. And you're not just having one enterprise, you have chickens, and what we did, chickens, pigs, and lamb that you can market. And so when you look at the system that we put in place from 2020 to 2023 that we had on my farm outside of Buffalo Center in our test plots, we were producing approximately between $13,000 to $15,000 of gross revenue on the acre that we had our barns working on. And so from a profitability standpoint, when you average the system across the corn acre and the livestock acre, the net profit that we had in 23 was, I think, an average of $2,230 an acre. So that slaps.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we've proven this out. Like, so, you know, we've caught the attention of the system from other people. And Jason Webster from Precision Planning called me in 2022, and he knew that we were onto something because he'd been playing with the same concepts. And so we built him a barn and sent it to him at Pontiac at their PTI farm. And everybody pulls in and they kind of, you know, what the hell is this thing? You know, like this doesn't look like normal. We got sheep running around a corn plot out here. You know, what's going on? Well, the funny thing is that in 2024, they ran the barn for the first time in 2023. And they're, you know, that farm, if you're not familiar, like they compare like the latest and greatest of any solution from any company, any machinery provider, any new technology that's going to boost farmer ROI, it goes to PTI farm, and they have an awesome, Jason does a phenomenal job. It's one of the premier farms in the country. So barn ran in 2023 with the animals. They planted corn back into it in 2024. And I got an email from him last February. I hadn't heard anything, so I didn't think it went well. When he finally emailed me the results before they went on their PTI tour, and he said, "You guys set the all-time corn record with the stock cropper system. They grew 434.9 bushel corn. Previous record was 403 using strip intercropping. Comparing that last year to the best 30-inch corn yield, like with normal, like Cadillac, you know, David Hula production type things, was about 370.
So what was the spacing like on the corn?
It was just 30-inch corn with 4 rows on a down-inch window.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there was I keep calling them chicken tractors, but there was
our cluster cluck nano, which was 120-inch. It was built for 120-inch windows to go, and it had the first year in 2023, it had just sheep and chickens. And then in 24, we added hogs in the middle. So we had all three enterprises.
Okay.
Now, I would say, like, if you were going to actually do scale production, that arrangement is not probably the most profitable because of the cost of capital for the extra machinery to put in there. So, if you were going to do this at field scale, it would probably be on a 20-foot schematic. So 8 rows of crop, 8 rows, or 20 foot of pasture in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that this intercrop thing is a real thing. I don't know if I haven't told you this, but I did raise some 430 bushel corn on 2 rows of corn, 2 rows of beans here a few years ago. And it's real. And the savings on the inputs is real. And I'm fascinated by incorporating the livestock into it. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like a big jump for me to want to do that.
So it's a huge jump, but it's only a big jump because the powers that be, or the big companies, I should say, haven't decided to see the opportunity, or I don't know, maybe they view it as a threat, or they just don't know. I mean, it's a big lift because, I mean, you're talking about redesigning what farm equipment looks like in order to enable this stuff.
But as an autonomy coming, I think that makes it that much easier.
The autonomy piece totally changes it. And so, I'm super passionate about stock cropper, but it's like a moonshot. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you're nuts." I know I'm nuts. You're not telling me anything I don't already know. What I'm interested in is the concepts that we've taken from this. And when we're talking about things like water quality, what are the things that we've learned that we can integrate into normal corn production and be incredibly profitable, but then drive things like water quality and be, a lot more responsible than what this business has evolved into in this space, in my personal opinion. That's the thing. Like, I don't ever want to do this stuff and produce less. Like, if this is going to be realistic to sell to farmers, you're never going to convince a farmer to have less, or back off what they're doing. And so that's the standard that I go at when I'm thinking about these different schematics, whether it's stock cropper or it's alley gap corn, like something like what you did to figure out how to make this work.
So the appeal of water quality and that being something that this could address, what are you seeing that this stock cropping system has done to address the issue with water quality?
Well, okay, so, how do we apply manure in the state of Iowa right now?
Maybe we wait till we consolidate all of manure from a year, and then we go out and we apply it in a given unit of time.
And when do we apply it?
In the fall, right before the ground freezes, typically.
Right. And then, so is there anything out there to suck up any of the nutrients when we apply the manure?
And not really, I suppose. Maybe somebody's doing some cover crops, but they're pretty.
1% of people might be doing that. Okay. So in our system, the way it works is the animals are out there during the growing season only. You're finishing stuff. You're putting feeder pigs or feeder lambs or chicks on the ground between May and October. And when they're out there doing their thing and spreading their own manure as it goes across the field, that manure is instantly getting taken up by the crop and getting turned into organic residues that don't just automatically turn into nitrate when they go to break down. And so especially like if it's in some of the grass species that we have that have a high carbon nitrogen ratio. And so the idea is that will be more of a slow release versus putting it out there and just having it in forms that can convert readily into nitrate and then, go into the 60-foot tile that I have underneath, my fields, and then end up where they don't belong and cause a problem for people, here in central Iowa.
So you think some of these yield advantages are coming from that in-season natural reapplication of manure?
No, because that manure is getting applied back to the same acre of grazing. So all it does is it charges the grazing area so we can come back and graze it a second time.
Okay.
The reason we're getting the yield charge is the next year we'll plant onto that fertility zone and it will have a whole, plethora. It's not just one form of, nitrogen or a microbiome out of the back of an animal. It's a whole cornucopia of it. And I think the combination of that biodiversity of manure, what it does to the soil health underneath, having multiple species of a cover crop the previous year that you're planting into, we're 10x the amount of biodiversity that I have on my normal monocrop corn and soybean acres. And so that in combination with changing the arrangement, and arrangement's free, there's no tech fee. You pay on planting stuff different. There's no licensing.
Not yet.
Good luck trying to do it. But, that's the stuff that makes me excited is, how can we find advantages that help farmers bottom line that they don't have to, pay 3 bushel to get 4 back.
Sure.
So
Somebody wants to get started doing this. How do they start doing this?
Well, I mean, again, I want to say like the idea, this is a novel idea, but is it a business opportunity for somebody right now? No, because the biggest limitation, like I said, is you have to have a way to get to market with scaled amounts of animals. So
But if somebody had the interest to be a first mover on this and they want to start, coming up with a concept, is this equipment prototype? Is it available? How do they?
you're talking about the barns that we
Sure,
yeah. So
barns.
the barns are still at prototype level. We're
Okay.
getting closer now for what we call the protein sovereignty market, which I think it will be a lot bigger opportunity for people that want to grow their own protein. Like if you want to have a couple pigs on your place, or you want to have chickens that you can get eggs or harvest broiler meat. That with like the Maha movement and everybody around food security, around what happened with COVID, there's definitely a movement, or the world just going to pot, and people worrying about. I mean, there's a lot more people that are talking about end times type apocalypse scenarios now, especially in last year. I think there's just an interest, like, how do I take care of my family, and how do I feed my family? And so that's really the focus that from what Stock Cropper is doing. We're really focused first on building devices like that, knowing that we've got a market block. Now, eventually, if policy changes, and the forces that be decide, hey, maybe we actually want to do this, yeah, then we'll absolutely back into that.
As you were just talking, that's where my mind was going. Like, do you hear any rumblings, or do you think that our government or our voter base has an appetite to see that grow, or develop policy that would promote this concept, broader scale?
I mean, I think here in the state of Iowa, water quality is it's rising to the. I think it'll be a top 5 issue in the election next year in 2026 here in the state. And what does that mean, though? What are people willing to do? What are people willing to put their name on the line for, and have the audacity to put forward? It really depends if people are actually interested in meaningful solutions or virtue signaling. 99% of what people do right now is virtue signaling. And, meaningful to me is like landscape change at the level of 80 to 85%. If we're not doing that, just know, if you're putting proposals forward that are just taking nibbles, know that making these improvements over the course of 100 years, look what happened to our soils and our ecosystems over the last 100 years. What we've done, we've lost, what is it? A third of our topsoil and half of our organic matter.
I almost can't believe that, but
You just look at a fence line.
Sure.
Like people that say it doesn't happen, just go stand on a fence line. Every fence line I farm, that my family's farmed for the last 100 years, it's there. We're guilty.
So earlier I asked the question about Zach. You might want to know Rachel's actually my daughter. So
yeah.
that's how we got that kind of relationship. Anyway, I asked the question about watering the livestock, and through that we talked about this isn't really to go big scale yet or anything, but we did talk about if you had 1,000 chickens, what do you do with them? Because we don't have the state inspected plants and things like that to slaughter chickens at a large scale.
Yeah.
So
I want to be perfectly clear. What I'm talking about with this system, is not that this is ready to go to scale. Like, we have to change a million other things that I don't have the resources to do. Other people are going to have to make those decisions if they want to have a system like mine become reality. 100%. I'm not delusional. You could maybe have 1 or 2 farmers scale this up on 80 acres right now with the amount of independent processing. So, people collectively, if they want this type of agriculture to percolate throughout the state or the Midwest, there's going to have to be substantial changes to our systems. I don't know if that's realistic, but we've definitely proven that we can produce a hell of a lot of material and protein and grain with a different arrangement using modern day tech with some of these older techniques. And are there pitfalls and things that have to be solved? Absolutely, there are. But we've bootstrapped this with a very little amount of capital. And if we put the same amount of money that some of these companies put into whatever See and Spray, or whatever the money that John Deere spent to do that, I think all of these problems could be solved, but a lot of back end stuff has to happen for it to be an actual reality. 100%.
like I said, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer.
No, it's a totally fair and realistic question, and I talk about it openly all the time. So,
but right now our policy is just too restrictive on the processing of of proteins, meat proteins, to be able to get these animals to market.
Yeah, 100%. There's too many regulations. The cost of getting up to USDA certification to do this stuff for these, and I mean,
And
it's,
I think
there
you
was
said
a lot of interest after COVID for this happening. And I remember going to my butcher and talking about this, like, what do you think, this is going to change everything? And he's like, no. He's like, there will be a blip, and as soon as things stabilize, we'll go back down. And that's essentially what's happened.
But you had said it, you believe that's by design.
Yeah.
There's a real effort to keep this restrictive.
I think so. Yeah.
I think if people look below surface, they're skin deep, they're going to see that is pretty evident.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So.
Hey, you ever run into that, Louis, through some of the policy work you've done on some of these restrictions here in the state with meat processing? Have you ever been involved in that?
I never got into meat processing, but if you want to talk about restrictions I did get into, which it's a rural area issue, is EMS, emergency systems, your ambulances and that. I got into that. I'm a former volunteer fireman. They forgot the state in their choosing of people to be on different boards and whatnot that changed the rules. They forgot the word volunteer. But I remember one meeting directly, someone from the state told me that, well, people didn't want people like you coming out and working on them if they were hurt or something was wrong. It's people like me. So, well, you come off the farm, you might have grease on your hands, you might, you got out of the tractor, you have the fire truck. And all I can say is, well, I guarantee you, if you're the person that has the heart condition or whatever we're going out for, you really don't care what I come dressed like, as long as I can help with the situation. So, yeah, and it never, and to be honest, we didn't really see much change, if any. And so, I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I think it's a great concept, but you're right. We have to have something that we can take the end product to. And that's a big step right now, especially when we got four major meat packers. We have a lot of people that are selling beef on their own, but I don't think
that's limited on hook space, and I mean, you got what it
Right.
takes to put. I mean, the reservations you have to make to get that. I mean, you're a year and a half out for a lot of those things. So, like I said, the system works.
Right.
We've proven that. It's just a matter if society wants to actually support it and put people in power to make those changes.
Well,
so.
I'm just new to meeting your acquaintance, but I know that you want to see meaningful change come, and that's your real passion here. So, like, even if we couldn't adopt this today, what are some of the directions we can go in to bring about some meaningful change to, even if it isn't everybody has a chicken tractor, where do you see the more the stuff readily available changes?
I want to be clear, like, I'm not here to promote stock cropper as the solution. I think it's a unique solution, but it's a long ways from happening. There's a million things that we can do within the confines of corn and soybean production in this state from the conventional lane that we're not doing right now, or we're putting lipstick on the pig in regards to some of our practices.
Tell the listeners, what you think some of these changes or, what we could be doing.
Well, number one, we could stop or substantially curtail the application of nitrogen in the fall.
Okay. You're talking like guys putting gas on in the fall.
Yeah.
Cold turkey.
Yeah.
Should be quitting that.
Yeah. Well, not cold turkey. Cold turkey doesn't work. I don't believe in bans.
Okay.
To be clear, bans are terrible policy ideas.
Okay.
Because, there are people I know in this state that want to just ban fall nitrogen. Well, that's a great thing, or a great sounding thing, and that'll make certain voting blocks really happy. But there's a lot of logistics to that, and retail locations can't just switch it on a dime. I know that because I come from the retail, the retail business. So
it's a real thing. You want to be able to get that gas out when you can, because your window gets concentrated, so small in the spring.
But when you think about from an agronomic basics, take it back to that first level agronomy at Iowa State. You look at what we do in the fall in the state. Everything that we do on the Des Moines lobe supercharges the potential for loss in the wrong environmental circumstances for nitrogen loss. Everything we do.
Okay.
So on the Des Moines lobe, if you go up there and go for a tour, 90% of the landscape is blacker.
What's the Des Moines lobe?
The Des Moines lobe is the geological formation that the Wisconsin glaciation made. It stretches essentially from like Mason City to Spirit Lake and then down, and it ends in Terrace Hill in Des Moines.
And that's what's dumping the watershed into the Des Moines River.
Yeah, that's the soils that typically contribute to the raccoon of the Des Moines, which are the issue for the
Okay.
municipal system down here. And so what we do is we do a lot of tillage. So what does tillage do? The reason we till is that we want the soil to be black so it warms up quicker in the spring so we can plant quicker. The unintended consequence of tillage is that tillage introduces oxygen into the soil. And what does oxygen do? It furthers the breakdown of the natural, gold bullion that we have as organic matter in the richest soils in the world. When that happens, and you have nothing to hold it in the spring, or in the fall, I should say, or in the spring from a living root, then it's able to move into our well-drained tile systems that we have underneath. There's nothing to catch it. If we have water, it's going to move into that tile and we'll lose it. And that's how it ends up in the river. So tillage is one part of it. But then all of the manure, you look at the hog barns that we have concentrated. I mean, it's the biggest concentration in the state is north and west of Des Moines here on that soil system. And we were putting manure on the lobe on the 15th of September this year, 9 months ahead of when a corn crop would need it. Okay, so we've got that. And anhydrous ammonia started about the 20th of October. It's pretty much wrapped up. This last weekend, it was 70 degrees when I drove to Des Moines on Saturday. And we were pretty well done with anhydrous. I talked to a source I had with a major co-op on the lobe this last week. I asked him, what's the anhydrous business looking like year over year? You would think with all the water quality issues, people may be thinking about pumping the brakes. Well, guess what? Anhydrous was 25 cents a unit cheaper. So the idea that we're all stewards got flushed down the tile drain, with the stewardship piece, 40% up year over year for tons, 50,000 more tons already applied on the lobe. But we all want clean water, right? That's all we hear from people. And so, and we have no living roots out there to suck any of this stuff up. So you have the combination of tillage. We fertilize a lot. Now, I want to be clear. I don't want to be sensational in this stuff because I don't want to get labeled as that. There are a lot of years where it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Well, that's right. I'm of the newly informed that, the soil naturally has for millennia produced 10,000 pounds per acre of nitrate or something.
We got to get back. We got to get you right on that.
Yeah, do it. So
the soil contains organic stable nitrogen.
Okay.
It's about 10,000 pounds. It depends on your percentage of organic matter, but 10,000 is a safe number. Okay. Every year, a little bit of that gets mineralized by the biology in the soil and turned from an organic form into an inorganic form that's available to plants. Okay.
Yep.
Typically, because this is how we got introduced on Twitter.
I think you're right.
We were debating this. And so typically it can range anywhere from, depending on the soil. So if you have a muck soil, it can be substantially higher, but typically 40 to maybe 100 pounds on average.
Is oxidized, basically released.
That gets released from that 10,000 pound pool.
Say that number again.
40 to say 100 as a safe range. That comes out of the 10,000 pound pool that you referred to.
Okay, so that 10,000 does exist, but it's not making that every year and releasing it.
And we wouldn't want to, because if it existed, we would have no more stable organic nitrogen left. What gives us the benefit of living here and growing crops. Okay. So those are really the issues that I see. And why do we do it? Why do we do this stuff? Every agronomist, if you went to Purdue or Iowa State, understand that they teach you this stuff in all the agronomy 114, agronomy 154, soils at Iowa State. You learn this stuff the first 3 weeks. Okay. So why do we do the opposite? We do the opposite because ag has evolved into this space where it's not about quality, it's about quantity and speed. High speed planters, high speed discs. We've got a lot to do. We don't need to have anything hold us planning. So we need to get out and we need to make as much, get the nitrogen out ahead of time. So we don't have time to piss with that when it comes, who has time to side dress? If you're farming 20,000 acres, how are you going to get across, in the month of June when it rains, like the last 2 summers on the lobe? It's tough.
Well, it takes some skilled labor to do that too.
It takes skilled labor, and everybody knows. So we have evolved, in my opinion, into, and it doesn't mean that people are bad people. We have bad policy that people follow. I mean, farmers just follow the policy they have since the beginning of time, and it's human nature. We're going to take the path of least resistance. And if there's unintended consequences, deny and deflect.
Sure.
Find a way to spin it. But agronomically, I get into a lot of arguments with people about this, but tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm happy to have the discussion and have an honest conversation, but I'm not happy to participate anymore in a system that just flat out misrepresents what's happening. Because you want to know why? The general public and the dwindling ag population, the general public is not going to put up with this that much longer.
I agree.
There's going to be consequences if we keep spewing bullshit.
So, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about the nitrogen application.
Yep.
You know, this water quality issue to me is bigger than this. I think there's a lot of stream bank erosion is a big part of this thing. I mean, are you tracking much of that?
So the stream bank thing, we talked about a little bit of that. I read up more on that after we had the interaction.
Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are, because that's what I feel like I know a lot about.
From what I took away from that, you know, the biggest concern in Iowa right now is with the nitrate situation, because that's, you know, when you look at the Des
Moines Waterworks thing.
Thing, but like not only that, like, I mean, if, you know, nitrates get into wells outside of the Des Moines lobe as well, with certain, you know, especially in Northeast Iowa, different type of topography and geology up there. But you know, one of the big things that's brought attention to this is that we've got the #1 leading cancer growth rate in the country.
And you think those are directly?
No, I don't think. So nitrates, though, are a carcinogenic if you have too high, and that's why we have to get it. You know, part of it's blue baby syndrome, but the other part is the fact that it has been linked, medically to causing cancer. Now, does that mean that it's the farmers killing everybody with cancer? No, that's not what it means, because there are a whole host of other things in the state of Iowa that are somewhat unique. Radon is one. Alcoholism.
Sure.
That's another one that people talk about. That is a real thing. I don't know, but who has the gauges on which is more or less? And it seems to be that whoever is maybe having something shown on them just says, well, what about these things? And the whataboutism is, I mean, when I look at what's going on, there clearly seems to be some sort of trend on what's happened over the course of my adult lifetime and what we've done with ag and how ag has evolved. So some of these things starting to happen.
Give me a little bit of rope here, but like there's guys out there that have done a lot to change their practices, and these numbers keep getting worse.
Yeah. Well, what are the percentage of people that are making change? How many acres of cover crops do we have in the state of Iowa?
I don't know. I mean, I know I do it. I know you do it. I know there's a lot of guys doing it now, but
it gets back to the thing of meaningful change. And if we have, Mike Naig's a great guy. I've had him on my farm, talked to him directly about this stuff before. Mike likes to go out and brag about the rate of growth of cover crops in the state of Iowa. When you start at zero and you grow, to, say a couple million, it seems like a huge percentage increase.
Well, it's up 0 to a couple million is 100% increase.
Yeah. So, right. But like we have 25 million acres.
Right.
And so a lot of the experts in this field have said, if you don't get to, 75 to 85% landscape adoption of changing how we farm, you can't expect the water to get better.
Okay.
And when you look at the direction of ag, where you look at the consolidation that's going to happen. We've talked about this off air, the consolidation that's going to happen, and the amount of guys that are the baby boomers that are going to retire, and the shift of land. What is going to? To me, I just see it that operations are going to have to, if they're going to survive, they're going to have to grow substantially in size. And if they do that, they're far less likely to be able to pull off the logistics of farming in a way that isn't about speed and logistical farming rather than qualitative farming.
Well, Louis,
let's talk about Des Moines Waterworks in Des Moines for a minute. Do they get their water solely from those two rivers?
It's not solely. It's a lot of it, but they also have, I think, an aquifer, I think in Jordan Creek, if I remember when I learned about this summer, that they pull from. Well.
Right, but maybe they need to follow the Cedar Rapids method more. That pulls more from aquifers. I'm not denying or saying I'm not trying to be a denier of anything that you said, whatever. But if they got this problem and it's so bad, maybe they need to look at resourcing their water from another place to
Why should that be the thing? Why can't we take accountability for what we're doing?
I'm not saying that you can't continue doing what you want to do, but that's the quickest way to change what's going on there.
Yeah.
Again, when I was in office, they didn't even bother to they took the nitrates out and dumped them in downriver.
That's not true. That's actually that's how they did it till 2015. Now they actually they
said when I was in office.
Yeah. So to be clear, I hear that repeated a lot you're right. It used to happen, but until 2015 that stopped. And now they actually turn it into a biosolid product that they sell. So that's not true anymore.
I didn't say it was true anymore. You didn't hear what I'd say. So when I was in office, that's what they were doing.
Okay. Yeah.
and I get that you're saying why should that be the source, but no different than if you had something going on at your house, whatever it is, non-farm related, you would and your neighbor could fix that in a 20-year time span. You probably want to do something on your own to help speed that up.
Well, something I guess where I was going to go with this, Louis, was we spent a little bit of time last time you and I were down here after our last filming, and we were talking about the transition and adoption. And generally, people that have been farming for a long time do not adopt new practices. Is that something that we're through policy or through the way farming is today that we are delaying new practices because we're not bringing in the next generation fast enough?
You're not bringing in any new practices because exactly what you guys talked about before. The system's not designed for new practices. It's designed for it's getting more designed for mega farms, mega farming. They're trucking people down there. I don't know, Case IH there next to Vetter, between Vetter and the Van Wall there on 30, to sell them on buying the new big combine. The new big combine isn't really going to participate in some of these new practices. I mean, it's to get it all done, just what you're saying. That's why nitrogen this year was solely I believe that the anhydrous part was solely a money issue. It was just so much cheaper than using 32. We went back to some anhydrous. No, we're not doing all anhydrous, but
it is. But if you're 100% right, Louis. But to that, I mean, the counter I say is, well, then if that's going to be the case, then we have to stop espousing. Our leadership has to stop espousing that we actually care about this stuff. I would probably just shut up if we just and go in the weeds and not care about it. But we say one thing and we do another, and that's the call out that I have that makes people uncomfortable is that I think we need real leadership to stand up and tell the truth on this stuff. And it starts with with a lot of the big organizations in the state that represent agriculture. I think they need to do a lot better. I think everybody knows this stuff. It's just like, we don't really know if we want to say it out loud. Sure. And really do the hard things that it takes. Because it's a lot of work. None of this is easy, the stuff I'm talking about.
It's uncomfortable.
And politically, it's suicide in some cases. So
something that did get done, and I think they're done now. It took far longer than I ever thought, but we appropriated money back in the day to close up all the open wells in Northwest Iowa.
That's a great.
But I couldn't believe it. I think there was like 22 left when I was there.
Yeah.
And we appropriated the money, but I couldn't believe the amount of time it took to actually close them. But that was a point source.
That's a fantastic thing they did. Absolutely.
So Zach, what leaders in Iowa do you think are promoting real change to this, or who are some of the leaders today that you think are leading by a good example that people should be following or listening into? Are there any good policy people? Are there who do you know?
I don't think
in the space
that have any attention.
You think are progressing policy to a
I don't really
solution? You don't think anybody is?
No.
Okay. Either side, right or left?
No, I don't. So I think you have. So let's talk about the right or left. I think on the left you have people that want to take everything, ban everything, and give the land back to the Indians and the bison.
Sure,
that's a position. And then on the other side you have thank a farmer. Don't ever question. Be happy that we feed you. Don't slap the hand. Those are the two opposing attitudes. And I always say to folks, the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle of that. And that's really, the reality is that agriculture is a major economic engine. And if you try to destroy that in one fell swoop, there is substantial consequences that the people that want to give the land back to the to the prairie, don't understand what would happen as cascading effects. And my approach is we don't have to burn the entire thing down, but we will have to substantially change how we go about and do business. Will it be painful? Yeah. And you bring up, the elephant in the room, which is the geriatric control over the industry that keeps, there's a lot of sons and daughters out there that farm that would like to do some of this stuff or interested, but they don't have the purse bag, or they don't, they're not, dad doesn't want to screw with that.
Right.
Stop wasting your time dicking around with these experiments. The best thing that ever happened to me was my dad retired at 62 and got the hell out of the way. And he says that all the time. He's like, the best thing I ever did was let you do what you wanted to do.
I keep hearing this repeated more and more. It's like the old saying in agriculture is that, well, we've never done it that way. And I don't know. It just seems like I keep hearing that more and more.
Well, and it's easier for old guys to stay in. I'm not, I don't have a thing against old guys. If old guys want to change and you farm forever, I don't care as long as you're evolving. But if you're just going to stand in the way and tie up the capital, tie up the land, tie up the decision making, it's easier to do that now. Everybody used to have livestock and your body was shot by the time you were 60 from moving hogs and pulling panels. And, like my dad's body was shot at that point. That's why he retired.
Yeah, 62 sounds pretty young.
It was young, but he did everything the hard way and he was worn out, by that age. We don't have that. Now we just hit the resume button. That's the tax that we have, to turn the thing around. And in some cases we just, Autopath does it for us. So it allows people to hang on longer. And that is, I think we need policy to, nudge, encourage the transfer into hands that are going to be more likely to adopt the change and farm at a scale. You talk about young people and opportunities in this business, farm at a scale where more people that are willing to do the hard things in this space because they're young and they're open to the change are able to do it and have
rewarded for it.
And have more young people involved rather than fewer.
Well, I think I really liked how you viewed that wide range from left to right. I think, as listeners are hearing that,
I'm politically independent. If anybody's wondering where I'm at, I ride the snake in the middle.
But, as listeners can hear this debate and this discussion about this issue, they can have some influence on that now. And they can have a different perspective maybe than they did when they tuned into this. And hopefully they can now analyze where we're at in Iowa and they can decide for themselves what change they think needs to happen and maybe tune into the discussion a little bit more.
Yeah. I think change is coming one way or the other. And it's just a matter of whether or not you're going to be part of that evolution or you're going to be against it. But nothing stays, stagnant forever. And, what I want to focus the rest of my career on is helping make Iowa a better place that has more opportunity rather than less. I talk about all the time, the funnel of consolidation. I want to tip that bastard upside down and have more people back on the land compared to what's happened over the course of my lifetime.
That's a great perspective. Louis, you got anything else to add to this? I think it's been a fun conversation.
No, I just hope that people realize when they're voting not to do it on one issue.
Yeah.
And the midterms are important. And I was going to have a big election coming up, with a lot of different people changing places, but the border's secure and other things are going on that I hope we stay the course. I'm not saying that things shouldn't be changed in the agriculture industry. I definitely think there's room to change there, but I think on a broad scale, there's a lot of things that have happened that are good that have nothing to do with agriculture, and we're kind of taking it on the chin right now, but because of inputs. But I get the water quality thing. I'm proud that we closed them open wells up when I was in the House, and we appropriated the money. It took like 5 or 6 years after the money was appropriated to get done, but I think that was a huge step toward water quality.
As water quality comes up again in this session, hopefully you come back on the show and we can maybe continue this conversation a little bit more.
I love talking about this stuff, and I'm always open to being wrong. So if somebody disagrees with some, reach out to me on X or whatever, and let's have a conversation about it. Tell me where I'm wrong.
So Zach, what's your handle on X again?
It's at Zebulus Prime.
Okay.
Yep. And don't ask. I was in a rock and roll band in college, and that was my moniker. I never thought I'd actually have a profile. X wasn't a thing at that point. So.
Louis kind of a singer of sorts too.
We should jam sometime, Louis.
Well,
what do you play?
I kind of stick to the country.
What's that?
I kind of stick toward old country.
Oh, yeah, I can do that too. I can pluck a bass along to that.
The highlight of the awards show last night was they brought George Strait on at the end.
There you go.
The kind of country. Give Vince Gill a very big award.
All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in. Check out Zach. Try to follow him.
Oh, the Stock Cropper on YouTube too.
Stock Cropper on YouTube. That's where you'll find him. So, Louis, you want to close us out?
Yeah. Check them out, and hope you rush on back for another episode. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Zach.
Thanks, listeners.